Today's notes will be about types of flowering plants. Just to recap from last time we took notes, there are two types of seed plants, one of those being angiosperms, which are flowering plants, and we'll talk about those today. The other being gymnosperms, which are naked seeds, meaning they don't have a fruit that the seed develops in. An example of that is shown here on the right, which is a pine cone, and that's a very immature pine cone, so it has not opened up yet to either be pollinated or have seeds to be dispersed. But that is a pine cone, and that is a gymnosperm, an example of that. Today's lecture will be about angiosperms and the different types of flowering plants. Angiosperms are typically broken down into one of two types of plant, monocot and dicot. A monocot, as its name says, is a plant that has one cotyledon. So this term right here is what a monocot is. Mono means one, cot is short for cotyledon. And a cotyledon is the seed leaf of a plant. So in the seed itself, it has one little seed leaf that's going to grow and develop into that plant. On the other hand, dicots, as di tells us, means two. Dicots are seeds that have two cotyledons or two leaf seeds. There are plants that have more than that, polycots and things like that, but we're going to mainly focus just on monocots and dicots. You will want to know the key differences between monocots and dicots, so the properties that make them different. For example, monocot has one cotyledon, dicot has two. For the flowering parts of monocots, they're going to be in threes, multiple of threes. So if you see a flower that has 3 petals or 6 petals, it's a monocot. If you see a plant that has 4 or 5 or 8 or 10 petals, then it's a dicot. So flower parts are going to be in multiples of 3s for monocots, 4s and 5s for dicots. When it comes to the leaves of a monocot are parallel, so they're going to all run in the same direction. And the leaves of a dicot are net-like or kind of veiny, right? So they branch out from other veins and are going to spread out in that manner. Don't worry about the pollen grains and the vascular bundles. It's okay to know this, so you can just see that they're all spread out here, and here they're going to be arranged and bundled in specific groups. But the couple of main ones that you really want to know are these 3 here. The number of seed leaves, flower part multiples, and veins. Here's a little more information about monocots. All I would like you to write down here, and you can just put this next to the monocots piece underneath angiosperms on page 3, is that a couple examples of these are tulips, lilies, bananas, and corn. Those are all going to be examples of monocots. And as you can see here on the right, this plant has 1, 2, 3 petals. It's a monocot. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a monocot. It also has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stamen male parts of the plant. So multiples of 6, or of 3 for all plants that are monocot. Here's a little more information about dicots. A couple examples of dicots are beans, oak trees, roses, cactus. And as you can see over here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals. So it's multiples of 4s and 5s in dicot plants. And on your note sheet, it says eudicot. You can cross the EU out. Eu just means true. Like when we talk about eukaryote, it's a true nucleus. These are true dicots. Don't worry about the U piece. Just remember that it's a dicot because it has 2 cotyledons or seed leaves in the leaf or in the seed. Angiosperms are going to reproduce using flowers. This is their reproductive structure. So flowers' purpose is for reproduction. Male and female gametophytes are going to develop within flowers. A gametophyte is a structure that produces gametes, and gametes are are sperm and egg, right? So the gametophyte is just that structure that produces them, sperm and egg inside of a flower, and that's where they're going to be. And this is going to help with pollination and fertilization more so than a cone is. The structures of a flower are what we were discussing just yesterday, and the structures are going to be important, and you will need to know these. The flower can be broken down into 4 pieces that start from the outside and kind of work their way into the center of the flower. The outermost, they're called whorls. So the outermost whorl are the sepals. That's these things here. And those are going to protect the flower from damage when it's just a bud. So those will still be covering it when it's growing before it actually blooms. Those things that you see, those are the sepals. The next whorl is the petal, and that's the brightly colored pieces here. Petals are going to be, their main purpose is to attract pollinators. So their color, the brightness, that's all going to signal to a pollinator that they should come help pollinate that plant. Stamen are the male structures. So this whole entire thing here is the stamen. This is the male structure of the plant. The top is the anther, which produces the pollen, and then the filament just holds the anther up. One easy way to remember that the stamen is the male part is that it has the word men in it. And then last, the pistil is the innermost whorl. This is here, this whole entire piece here is the pistil, and this is going to have the ovaries, which contain the ovules that are going to become a seed. And this piece up here at the top is the stigma. That's where pollen lands, which then travels down the style to the ovary. So the whole female structure is called the pistil. It's broken down into 3 separate pieces. The whole male structure is called the stamen. It's broken down into 2 pieces. If you have not yet labeled the structure of flowers on your note booklet, please take time to do that now. Again, just a quick review. Here are the sepals. These are going to protect the flower when it's a bud. Then the next level is the petals, followed by the stamen, the male structure with the anther that produces pollen on top of the filament. The pistil is the female structure that has the stigma. It's kind of sticky, so stigma is sticky so that pollen can land here. And then that sperm from the pollen will travel down the style to the ovary where fertilization takes place. Once the sperm has reached the egg inside of the ovary of a flower, the next step is going to be developing into the seed. And the seed will eventually fully develop inside of a fruit, which is that ovary. Okay, so the fruit is the mature plant's ovary. Once that ovary has developed into a nice ripe fruit, it will then hopefully catch the eye of some animal, which will help it be dispersed. So one thing I do want you to write down underneath your picture of your flower is that the primary function of fruit is seed dispersal. The fruit's whole entire purpose is to get those seeds out and away from the parent plant so that they can grow, because unlike animals, plants can't move around. And so if the plant is growing right next to the parent plant, they're going to be competing for resources, water, sunlight, etc. The plant's best opportunity for carrying that species on is to get those seeds out and away from it so that it doesn't compete with the parent plant. Fruits are the way that this is done. One of the ways that this is done. Animals come along, they consume the fruit with the seed inside of it, they go off, they later poop the seeds out somewhere else, and then those grow and develop. So this is a huge investment for the plant to create fruit just to help get those seeds dispersed. And that is the end of the notes for flowering plants.